Well, what a joy to chat with you all, to meditate with you all. Again, thank you for joining us this evening. It's off to a joyous beginning. And as I said, our goal tonight, all of us here from Ananda Sangha, is to also share with you some tools, some techniques to help you. Even now, there's of course the technique of Kriya Yoga, which I'll be talking about in just a moment, but also there are many other techniques along the way. I wonder, could you raise your hand if you've heard of this book or seen this book, Autobiography of a Yogi, or if you've read it? So, very good. This book, Autobiography of a Yogi, was written by Paramhansa Yogananda, and of course he's pictured right here. And he shares in this book his own experiences as a young yogi, and actually of all of the different saints that he met in India, and also some in the West, because he left India in 1920 and then lived in America for basically the next 32 years. He returned to India briefly in 1935 and 36. But he shares the teachings of his guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar, who I'm unfortunately standing right in front of here, and then Sri Yukteswar's guru, Lahiri Mahashaya. Why don't we turn this just a little bit? Can we turn it a little bit more, just because poor Lahiri Mahashaya is getting blocked? And because watch out. Okay, good. And then, of course, Lahiri Mahashaya's guru is probably well known to just about everybody, Mahavatar Babaji. You've heard of Babaji? You've seen the movie? So thank you to Rajani. In fact, Rajnikant said that he got the idea for that movie from this book, from Autobiography of a Yogi. It occurred to him while he was reading it. Now, what do these gurus come to tell us? And by these gurus, I don't mean just these particular masters who you see here, but all gurus, all masters. As I said, they come to teach us. They come to help us. And so this puts us in a very wonderful position, because we are able to be helped. Of course, the question is, helped in what way? Helped for what? And really, the purpose of life is to be happy, to find true happiness. Now, I have to tell you that a friend of mine is very serious on the spiritual path, and her husband is seriously not on the spiritual path. And he was observing her trying to live properly, trying to follow all rules of Dharma, trying to meditate, but he was also seeing she would get worried if she couldn't meditate as much as she wanted to, or if she had possibly said something that made someone else upset, and he would say, "My gosh, such a little thing, how could they possibly be upset?" And she was worried about a lot of things. And he said, "You see, you follow all these spiritual teachings, and you're always worried." He said, "And I don't follow anything except basically some combination of dosa, kingfisher, and television. That is my sadhana. And I am always happy." So he said, "I think either there's something wrong in your teaching or you're doing it wrong." And the problem is, when she shared this with me, she said, the problem is he's right. I am always worried about what about this and what will happen to that person, and he's never worried. And so is it wrong? Is something wrong? But you see, the kind of happiness we are looking for is one that will continue even if there is a problem with the dosa, or if there is a problem with the television, or there is a problem with the health, or there is a bigger problem. It's easy to be happy when everything is fine. There's no teaching required for that. But the challenge is, how do we become happy? How do we hang on to, if not happiness, at least peace, when there is all kinds of trouble? Why? Because if we can hang on to peace, then we can be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. You see, if we say, "No one is peaceful," that's neither are we. We're adding right to that. So what can we do? First, ourselves. It says, like for example, in an airplane, put on your own oxygen mask first. before helping others. Because if you pass out, it's going to be a big problem. So first get yourself together, then take care of somebody else. And so this is really what we are trying to do too, is to get our own strength raised, our own energy raised, our own minds to become clearer, our own hearts to become more open. Then we can help others. And it's important to help others. How can we help them? Well, one thing, we can share with them the things we have learned or discovered, but also we can share with them just a smile. You know how often you are walking down the street and you might see one kind face, one relaxed face, and sometimes it's a joy. I was in Pondicherry not too long ago. My wife Dharmini and I were there, and we saw a man just drive by on a motorcycle, and he had such a beautiful look on his face that we felt blessed by it. We wondered, who is some yogi or something heading somewhere? Is there some yogi convention we didn't hear about? But there was something in that man that we, again, uplifted our day, and we ourselves, all of us, can be that for others. Now, when we want to talk about how to do this growth, is there a need for growth? Well, in fact, in Autobiography of a Yogi, I've pulled out some quotes here. In fact, I'll share with you different words of these masters on this very subject. Because free yourself from karma through Kriya Yoga, that one phrase, Kriya Yoga, may not be familiar to you. And so Babaji said to his disciple, Lahiri Mahashaya, at the time of their meeting, "The cries of many bewildered worldly men and women have not fallen unheard on the ears of the great ones. You have been chosen to bring spiritual solace through Kriya Yoga to numerous earnest seekers. The millions who are encumbered by family ties and heavy worldly duties will take new heart from you, a householder like themselves. You must guide them to see that the highest yogic attainments are not barred to the family man. Even in the world, the yogi that faithfully discharges his responsibilities without personal motive or attachment treads the sure path of enlightenment." And really what was happening in this conversation is that Babaji was returning to the world a particular yoga technique, which Lahiri Mahashaya later named Kriya Yoga. And I'll explain more about that in a moment. But first of all, just to make it clear, all techniques of yoga have as their goal to free us from karma. I'm not trying to say this is just Kriya Yoga particularly, or the teaching of these gurus only. I think I mentioned it, but just to clarify, Yoganandaji's direct disciple was Swami Kriyananda, and again, he was my teacher and my wife's teacher. And so, Yoganandaji is teaching something universal. All yoga teachers, all yoga teachings, I should say, have as their goal to help us free ourselves from karma, whatever you do, whatever path you follow. In fact, Yoganandaji said every time you meditate, you burn up some karma. That's quite a statement. Think about it. Every time you meditate, you burn up karma. It's the only thing I know of that when you do it, you burn up karma, you reduce karma. Just about everything else that we do, every action, we generate karma. But meditation undoes the karma. I'll explain a little bit about how such a statement could be true and why it works, or how meditation accomplishes this. And this will be the point of the evening. At the end, I'll share with you one other meditation technique that will be particularly effective in doing this. Now, in Autobiography of a Yogi, one of Lahiri Mahashaya's disciples named Swami Kebalananda says, "I myself consider Kriya the most effective device of salvation through self-effort ever to be evolved in man's search for the infinite." And this brings us to a very important teaching, that what is it that we can do to find salvation, to achieve enlightenment, to grow through our own self-effort. This is one debate that comes up in the spiritual world. What can we do through self-effort versus what is just God's grace? What is just Kripa? And so, do we want one or the other or both? I think obviously the answer has to be both. I mean, why have one and not the other? But you see, sometimes people will argue against self-effort, saying that it is all God's grace only. In fact, it is all God's grace only. But in the following way, Yoganandaji gave the teaching, the example of, it's wonderful, we have windows right here. He said, God's grace shines equally on all, just like sunlight shines equally on all. And in Chennai, it seems to shine a little more equally on us in terms of the heat. But he said that sunlight entering your life, entering your consciousness, is like shining on the side of a building through. There's windows here, but if the curtains are closed, then the sunlight doesn't enter. And so, if we open the curtains of our minds, then God's grace can enter. So it takes self-effort to open those curtains and say, yes, I want your help. Yes, I want this. Because if we just stay closed, God will not force himself. The sunlight doesn't burn through the curtains and say, look, you're going to need this, even though it's true. And so that's all the yoga techniques really do. It's not that we lift ourselves up to heaven by our own feet. It's that we open ourselves to receive the grace that's trying to come. We open ourselves to God's help that is always coming to us. You see, we put ourselves in tune with that. That does take effort. A radio doesn't tune itself. We have to tune it. We don't twist the knob anymore. You just pick the station, or you even click now. But still, you maybe remember your grandfather tuning a radio. And so we also are tuning ourselves to the right wavelength of God's consciousness. There's a lot of consciousness coming to us. That's a whole other subject. But we ourselves want to tune in so that we can get answers, intuition, insights, and also strength, as I said. So, this is something that we can do through our own efforts. These techniques that we just did, if you felt an effect from these techniques, that was from your own self-effort. But you didn't make the energy move in your body. You didn't make the blood flow. You did something, and then all these things followed as a result of that. In fact, we often think of karma as action. That's literally in English what the word karma translates to. Speaking of English, I should mention this book, let's see, in the Pustakam Tamila Irka also. And so, in fact, at our center, let's see, Nanga, well, anyway, classes Tamila, Puttagam Tamila. The only problem is Dharmarajan Tamila Ille. And Dharmini, unfortunately, also. We're learning, but it's very Meduva. Meduva. Rumba Meduva. Okay, and those are all the Tamil words I know. So, when we think of the word karma, it translates in English to action. And so it's good to think of that. In fact, we have in physics, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Newton's third law. Of course, before it was Newton's third law, it was probably Aryabhata's 10th law. And in fact, Aryabhata didn't bother to name it after himself. He just said it's the law. It's just something that is. And so the ancient Vedic writers or scholars they didn't bother putting their names on things. They said this is just the truth. Who cares who says it? If we choose to honor them by attaching their names, that's fine. Now, this law, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, fine. But I would like us to, instead of thinking in terms of action, to think in terms of energy. Now, how can I explain this? When we think of karma as a challenge, as a problem. Oh, I have to overcome my karma. Oh, I have some burden of karma. It's implied in today's subject. Free yourself from karma, as if karma is something you want to be freed from, and that you'll be happier if you're free from it. So, why? Because what is karma anyway? You can visualize it this way. If we act in a certain way when we are off center, then we shoot out from ourselves an equal and opposite action that you can think of as sort of like a blast of energy. And it goes out and it comes around, it goes out this way, and it comes around and it finally pushes us back to center. That is the only purpose of karma. We were off center, and the karma comes to correct that. For example, if we act with unkindness, sometimes unkindness can return to us. And you can say, well, how does that help? Well, maybe it helps us to learn that I don't like it when people are unkind to me, so maybe I'll be kinder myself. It's obvious when we're sitting in a comfortable room and, where it's no problem. It's harder when we're under pressure. Yoganandaji taught one of his disciples this. There was a man at the ashram who was very happily spreading rumors about everyone. And he was sort of a politically minded person. And so he was having so much fun creating chaos. And Yoganandaji saw that the man was doing this. And he said, so Yoganandaji decided to create a rumor about him. And so he started spreading a rumor about this man. And the man came to him and said, this is horrible what has happened. Do you know what people are saying? And how did this start? And Yoganandaji said, find it out. And so he finally discovered the first person who had heard it from Yoganandaji. And he came to Yoganandaji furious, saying, how dare you start this rumor about me? It's completely false. And Yoganandaji said, now that you know what it feels like, never spread rumors again. And the man was embarrassed. But you see, great masters can do that. I wouldn't recommend teaching your friends lessons in the same way. If you want to keep them, I myself wouldn't dare. However, the masters are able to pull off such things very easily, and they are great lessons for us. So, remember, karma is not punishment. Karma, in this case that I'm giving, is just correction. No. Some people say there's nothing you can do about your karma, and that's not true overall, but in one way it is true. When we are off center and we act and some energy goes out from us, it's like throwing a boomerang. You know the boomerang, you throw the thing and it comes back and you better duck or catch it or something. So once we have acted and thrown that boomerang out the opposite direction, it is coming back. And there is nothing we can do about it. You can't try to shoot it out of the air or, nothing. If it is, the energy has gone out and it must return. However, I said, remember, we're off center. The energy is coming to correct us. If in the meantime we correct ourselves, well, then when the boomerang hits us, we're already back to center. So it has no major effect. You see, if thinking of it another way, suppose in some past life, in a fit of anger, we punch somebody in the jaw. So now we know, because the boomerang is gone out, that in this lifetime, or suppose in this lifetime, there is a punch coming for our jaw, just to pay off the debt. Fine. We can just sit there going, is it you? Worried, and that's not going to help. Or we can, in the meantime, get strong. Do exercises, build up, I don't know what kind of jaw exercises we would do, but, basically build up our muscles, build up our strength, and then when the punch finally comes, we may say, a piece of paper brushed my face, because we have strengthened ourselves in the meantime. And so this is our goal, not to just sit and worry or to feel bogged down, but say, how can I get stronger now? So, as I've said, though, I want us to think of karma in terms of energy, because we have these karmas from the past, but they are waiting. In fact, we can think of them as seeds of karma that haven't yet sprouted. And I'll talk a little bit more about this. Do we have any kind of AC remote or anything like that? Because I remembered that there were the AC. Can you ask Tulasi if there's anything they can do? Yeah, thank you. It's not exactly April and May, but it's starting to feel like that. So, the energy, this karma, when we have done an action, but the reaction has not yet come to us, you can think of that as a commitment of energy. And so, let me take a step back and first just talk about energy in general. Even beyond our physical form, we are beings of energy. And as we did those first exercises, you might have felt yourself more awake, more alive, lighter. These are all signs of increased energy. Let's try to do a few more exercises now to feel what this energy within ourselves feels like. Of course, the scriptures talk about energy as using the word prana, and that's of course accurate. But it was hard earlier, say maybe 200 years ago, 100 years ago, to speak of energy because we had no real easy reference point. Now we have electricity. And we know that electricity is powering these lights and powering those lights and not powering the AC. And that this same current animates all kinds of things. And so then we can tune into, well, do we have some kind of energy? We know we have electrical current in our body because through our nervous system, our nerves run on electrical impulses. So let's take a moment to try to tune into this energy. Let's stand up. And Yoganandaji taught that there is great energy. The hands are great transmitters of energy. And so what we're going to do is rub the hands together, and this draws energy into the hands. And then we are going to raise the hands and ask to be replenished in our energy. Let's chant Om 3 times together. Om. 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 Take a moment. You can hold your hands up or bring them down. See if you can feel that energy flowing through your hands. Let's bring our hands together. We'll do this one more time. This time, think of someone you know. This is not for us to receive energy, but for us to send energy. Think of someone you know in need of healing, who you would like to send energy to, or ask God to send energy to through you. It could be a person in need of physical healing. It could be a friend preparing for an exam. Anyone you know or someone you love who you would like to give the gift of God's energy. Really to invite God to give the gift of energy, but again, through you. So this time when we do the same thing, where our thought will be on sending the energy to this particular person, whoever you have in mind. Let's rub the hands together, drawing energy into the hands, and then raise the hands, thinking of this person again. Let's chant Om together 3 times. Om. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Okay, please be seated. There is another technique we can try to tune into energy, our own energy, and our own different levels of energy. You see, we have 3 levels of consciousness, Yoganandaji taught. The first 2 are familiar. Sorry? Okay, well, if you can do anything, please do, and otherwise we'll have to send energy to ourselves through the hands. So, okay. We have three levels of consciousness. First of all, we have the subconscious mind, which is probably known to you, and then the conscious mind. Now, the subconscious mind, of course, in English, subconscious would mean below, conscious kira, so subconscious mind. And so the conscious mind is the mind hopefully you're in right now, the mind that we use to engage in the world. And the subconscious mind comes up especially when we sleep, first of all, because that's where our dreams come from and so on. But it influences us also when we're awake, in certain ways like habit, when you've learned how to do something very fast. For example, typing on your phone. I used to use the example of tying shoelaces, but when's the last time you tied a shoelace? You know? So, especially in Chennai with chappals and everything, it's just not a lot of shoelaces running around. But things that you've learned how to do, like tying a tie or making a particular thing that you don't have to think about anymore. You've just learned how to do it. If you learned how to type, for example. So this is done through habit. This is the tool of the subconscious mind. It's a powerful tool. It can be very helpful. What if every time we had to relearn, okay, slide to unlock phone, and then we had to every time use it for the first time? It would be difficult. And so habit is a time saver, a labor-saving device. Good, especially also when we have good habits. The problem is, besides good habits, there are also other kinds of habits. And so we can be influenced, for example. Suppose we have a fear of, when we were young, we were shouted at a lot, or there was a lot of shouting around us. And then, even as adults, even as big, strong people, somebody shouts, and inwardly we feel that fear all over again, as if we're kuti, and we're not kuti. And there is no reason to be afraid, but we're influenced by that habit from the past. What to speak of past lives? How can you tell if you have a habit from a past life or a preference from a past life? I would love to just wait for the sirens to finish, but that's all right. Hopefully they're helping somebody. So when you have a preference for something that you can't explain, that could be something coming to you from the past. It could be a past karma, a past habit, something even from a past life. A friend of mine went from Chennai to Canada, and he said, I just felt like Canada was my second home. Now, I've went to Canada, and I didn't think anything like that. I liked Canada, but I also liked to go home. But he said the people there also, they responded to me as if I was one of their own. The tall pine trees, mind you, Canada looks nothing like Chennai. It's almost the opposite of Chennai in a way, especially the weather. I said, weren't you cold? He said, oh, I was cold, but I still loved it. And so, who could explain why? It was his first time there. It's not that he did a PhD in Canadian studies or something like that. It was just an immediate reaction. If you've had that, you go to a place, you love the place. You go to some other place, maybe you don't like it. That's one easy way to test this, because it's your first impression. If you eat pavakai constantly and don't like it, it's not such a shock where that preference came from. If you eat Mysore pak constantly and love it, like my cousin, who, because Mysore pak is a bit heavy, she cuts it in half and just eats half, and then the other half also. And so when we know where those likes and dislikes come from, but what about others that we can't explain? And so this again is hints to us about the past. All of this is the subconscious mind, and it's beneath our conscious awareness. Their third aspect of our mind is the superconscious mind, and this is higher than conscious. The tool of the superconscious mind is intuition. Intuition is when you receive an answer immediately. So often this can happen if you go to sleep and you wake up in the morning and then, I have the answer. Why didn't I think of it before? And we can attribute that to the subconscious mind, thinking that, my subconscious mind gave it to me. It's probably not the subconscious mind. It's probably the superconscious mind. You see, the subconscious mind can only give back to you what you put into it. You can think of it as sort of a browser history, you see, or whatever files you've saved. And so it doesn't produce these things, it just gives them back to you. And so if you remember a solution that you knew of already, sure, maybe it's the subconscious. But if it's a powerful solution, a new idea, something you hadn't thought of before, then it is from the superconscious mind. Intuition gives you the answer without thinking, without logic, without, well, if you see because of this, then yes, because it just arrives. You see, when Albert Einstein realized that when he was coming up with this E equals mc squared, his theory of general relativity, or special relativity, I guess was the first one, he just had a flash of insight about, he said if he were traveling at the speed of light, he would see light as a standing wave. A standing wave is a wave that is sort of not moving at all. Don't ask me to explain it further because I'm incapable of doing so in any language. But the thing is that flash was not then what he ran around telling people. Even though he saw it and he knew it was true, he spent 10 years trying to build a logical bridge from what physics already knew to his discovery. That's not how he figured it out, but that's how he explained it to other people. When we have an intuition, I know this is going to happen, or I know this is the right way to go, then it's helpful, though, when explaining that, instead of saying, it was my intuition. Because that's not fair. What about the other person's intuition? You know, and how do we have any conversation about it? It was my intuition. Well, could you explain? I don't need to explain. It is my intuition. So we try to instead present it to people logically, reasonably. Don't you see that maybe this could argue why we should go in the right in this direction? And try, as Swami Kriyananda said, to convince people by sweet reason or not at all. So, in this case, what's interesting about these 3 levels of consciousness is that Yoganandaji said you can access them through the position of your eyes. Isn't that interesting? And in a way, if you think about it, we know this. If we are in the conscious mind, we're looking ahead. You know, you rarely see somebody sort of, I'm working on my math problems right now. I mean, you expect them to have their eyes directed to what they're paying attention to. But what happens when we put the eyes down? This helps us to access the subconscious mind. And again, you might have had this experience if someone is talking to you and talking and still more talking, which I hope is not how you're feeling right now. And then the eyes start to, is it? The eyes just have to drop down a little bit. I need a little break from the torrent of words that are coming at me. The eyes go down and we feel at first relaxed. But it is a relaxation downward. It is sort of a melting into a comfy, sleepy time. It is not an energized relaxation. Remember, the more energized you are, the more relaxed you are. Because when you have energy, you feel, I can handle it. So often our stress comes from when our energy is low. And then one more thing comes and we say, get away! Because we just have nothing left to give. But with more energy, we say, no problem, I can do it. You rest. I don't mind. For me, it's no problem. I have the strength. So, when we look up, then we are accessing the superconscious mind. This is why the yogis teach us to meditate with our eyes looking upward. Just slightly upward. Babaji's eyes, that's for Babaji. That position of eyes, that's too high for us because we can't do it comfortably. In fact, saints, when they go into deep states of samadhi, and by saints I include all of us one day, the eyes go all the way back up in the head. They're magnetized by the energy here at the spiritual eye or the Agya chakra, but they're completely relaxed. Whereas if we try to do that, it hurts the eyes and it's not comfortable. So you want the eyes just slightly upward is all you need for accessing superconsciousness. So, let's do an experiment. See if you can tune into these 3 levels of consciousness. Let's sit up straight again. We want our spines to be straight, and I'll explain more about that in a moment. We want the eyes to be looking straight ahead. Okay, so don't look at me because that's not straight ahead. Just look straight ahead. You'll sort of maybe see the altar pictures. And try to feel how you are alert in the present and seeing what's right in front of you. And let us now have the eyes, just keeping your body completely in the same position. Don't lower your head. Just let your eyes fall. Look down. You'll be looking at the floor or your knees or something. But forget what you're seeing. Just feel how when the eyes look down, there might be a little bit of relaxation. In fact, there is an affirmation that can help us to tune into this subconscious mind. And the affirmation is, through slowly drifting waters, I sink into subconsciousness. So let's say that together with the eyes looking down. Through slowly drifting waters, I sink into... I'll do it in 2 pieces. Through slowly drifting waters, I sink into subconsciousness. I sink into subconsciousness. Through slowly drifting waters, I sink into subconsciousness. Now let's lift the eyes to look straight ahead. See if you can feel a difference in energy. And let's also do an affirmation now for the conscious mind. With a burst of energy, I rise to greet the world. With a burst of energy, I rise to greet the world. With a burst of energy, I rise to greet the world. With a burst of energy, I rise to greet the world. And now, let's lift the eyes upward slightly. Just a little bit. Keep your chin parallel to the ground. Keep your eyes looking upward, but just again, slightly. Maybe you're seeing just above the altar pictures. Don't feel that you have to look up too high. And let's do the affirmation for this one. I awaken thy light. I awaken thy light. I am joyful, I am free. I am joyful, I am free. I awaken thy light. I awaken thy light. I am joyful, I am free. I am joyful, I am free. And see how, unlike consciousness, we feel alert, but also perhaps hopeful. Perhaps a little lighter, a little happier, a little smarter. Okay, we'll end the exercise now. So, if nothing else, remember, this is why we need the eyes upward in meditation, so that we can go into superconsciousness. If we have the eyes down, you can guess where we'll go. And so if you find yourself, in fact, my mother asked me once, she saw my brother meditating, and she asked him, now, what are you doing? Because he had some mudra going, and he said, I prefer not to speak of it. And so she got a little nervous, and so she asked me, and knowing she was a mother, and just, kind of wanting to make sure everything's okay, and so I explained it's this kind of mudra, and it's supposed to help you hear the sounds of the chakras and so on. She said, he does something else, and I, what is that? He won't tell me. And I said, well, it's not a secret, actually. I can tell you it's this and that. And then she said, there's one more thing. He does this when he meditates. And I said, that is called falling asleep. That's the falling asleep mudra, which I was also very good at myself. So I was not at all criticizing him. So again, when you are meditating, have the eyes slightly upward. And notice too that if you're sleepy all the time, a lot of times people will read books like this. See, notice my eyes are looking downward. It's not the book's fault. It's because the eyes are downward. It's better if you can to either hold the book up so your eyes are straight ahead, or bring your head down, or sit some other way that I can't demonstrate up here. So you're more looking straight ahead. You don't have to hold it up necessarily. But But you see, when people are being thoughtful, still, they'll kind of look up. You see, we're trying to access this higher awareness. So if you felt something in that, then I'm glad, because I'm wanting you to be able to experience your own energy, because that will tie into this now, our last section, which is on Kriya Yoga, helps you with energy. Lahiri Mahashaya said, meditate unceasingly that you may quickly behold yourself as the infinite essence, free from every form of misery. Cease being a prisoner of the body. Using the secret key of Kriya, learn to escape into spirit. And Sri Yukteswarji said to Master Yoganandaji, after the mind has been cleared by Kriya Yoga of sensory obstacles, meditation furnishes a twofold proof of God. Ever new joy is evidence of His existence, convincing to our very atoms. Also, in meditation one finds His instant guidance, His adequate response to every difficulty. When we pray, when we meditate, it isn't just that we get answers in terms of, yamas and niyamas only. You can ask for specific help, of course, with the particular problem you're facing. I've had this happen to me so many times, in little ways, where there's the intuitive guidance to try to ask the person in this way. I mean, a trivial thing. Or maybe ask that person, or anything. All these relatively small details, your intuition will guide you in. It doesn't have to be cosmic. Nothing is too small for God. I mean, let's face it, think about us. I mean, we're pretty small too, if you want to think about it. Everything is too small for God. So therefore nothing is. But you can think of it another way. You know how if a child has a toy and breaks the toy and then, says, ooh, and what do we say? That's a toy, it's ridiculous. You should see what kind of problems I have to deal with. No. We say, oh, good dear problem, and we try to put the thing back together. We, to get them another one. We take it seriously because the child takes it seriously. So we have the same we say to God, God, I'm having a big problem because ITR deadline is approaching and is past even, and I have to file, but there's still. And so, God says, oh, okay, no problem. Here, I'll give you this help with the ADG receipt or whatever it is. You see, He knows it's all silly. Oh, do you need your Aadhaar? He just will help us with these trivial things. But to us, we take them all very seriously. So He helps us on our level of consciousness because He loves us. So let me, in this last time, tell you a little bit about how Kriya Yoga works. I said every time you meditate, some karma is released. Anytime you do any yogic practice, it is trying to help you to release karma. So remember that. It's not particular to Kriya Yoga, but Kriya Yoga is particularly effective. This is why Babaji brought this back into the world. This was in 1861. And before that, the only way you could learn Kriya Yoga is if you went to the Himalayas and happened to find a Kriya Yogi and then said, here, please teach me. Otherwise, it was completely secret and hidden from the world. As explained in Autobiography of a Yogi, due to priestly secrecy and man's indifference. You see? It wasn't only that it was kept secret generally, it was that people said, who cares? You see, but when we suffer enough and we find that the solutions don't just come with having enough food, a happy enough house, everybody is healthy, okay, all my basic needs are taken care of, still I am troubled. And so how can I find the solution to those troubles? What is the medicine for that? So how does this work? You see, we know that when we feel happy, we use words like I am upbeat. Somehow there is an upward feeling of energy associated with happiness. We sit up straight. We even say, I'm high, I'm flying high. Again, I'm upbeat. And other words, similarly, when we feel sad, we say, I feel down, I feel depressed. Depressed is like a button that's pressed down. That's what the word literally means. I am depressed, I'm in the dumps, I'm low. So many words for that feeling. And so we never see, even you see it in the body, that if like children display this relatively easily, because as we grow up, we learn how to sort of hide things. But if you say to a child, today we are not going to school, instead we are going to the zoo, and afterwards ice cream, you see, the energy is practically bursting out of the spine. It's all the energy is upward. Then you say, but since you didn't finish your homework, you have to stay home. The whole energy goes downward. I want, the energy goes up. I don't want. I like, I don't like. I'm happy, I'm sad. And so we know that this upward movement of energy in the spine is a good thing. We can say, yes, it's to raise the Kundalini, but what does that mean? How do we do it? What do we feel like? When you raise the Kundalini, you are happy. And when you are happy, when you think a kind thought, some energy of Kundalini rises up your spine. Yoganandaji said this. He said, every time you think a positive thought, some Kundalini energy rises up your spine. And every time we think a negative thought, some energy sinks downward, or Kundalini more tightly coils around its resting spot at the base of the spine, an image you can have. Kundalini is not awakened by techniques alone. And so keep that in mind, that you can practice no techniques and just think positive, and it will help you immensely. The thing is, it's not always easy to do. And for that reason, the techniques are very useful, because they work on us directly at the source of the problem, directly on the battlefield, which is to say the spine. The spine is where all the action is. And so when energy rises up the spine, that's what makes us feel happy. You see, in fact, even more deeply than that, when we inhale, the yogis say energy is rising in the spine. If you've heard of this, the Irda channel, Irda and Pingala, if not, don't worry about it, but these are channels in the spine. Energy rises when we inhale and descends when we exhale. And this we do all day long. But the rising energy in the spine is what causes the inhalation. It isn't that we inhale and that makes the energy go up. First the energy rises, then the lungs take the air in. Okay, the spine is the cause of everything. Now, when we understand now that there's movements of energy in the spine, and the more the flow upward is, the more joy we feel. And when the energy sinks, the less joy we feel. Or to put it another way, if less energy is coming up, we have less strength ourselves. So, why? What is the obstruction to that flow of energy? Interestingly enough, it is karma. Karma is not just an abstraction. It's not just a ledger full of debts that someone is keeping track of and saying, and every now and then auditing and go, It isn't that at all. Actually, as I was telling you before, think of karma in terms of energy. Karma is frozen energy. It is a commitment of our energy. So let me give you a practical example that maybe you can relate to. You see, karma is generated by not action, but desire. In other words, if you do an action with great desire, that generates a bigger karma than if you did something with little desire. Suppose you accidentally hit someone. Not even meaning to, you just turned. So that generates a tiny karma. Whereas if you, I see them, I'll pretend that I don't, but that generates a big karma. Okay? There's good karma too. I mean, suppose you do really a good thing for someone. And, that will give you a nice blessing back. Suppose you sort of say, oh, I actually didn't mean to, but if it helps you, fine. Then that doesn't give you such a good karma, actually. So the desire is really the force or the fuel behind that karma. So if we desire something, I really want this, and I think that I should have gotten the promotion, and I don't see why she got the promotion because I came here 2 years before her, and all my numbers are, and it's just because the boss, so we're sitting, brooding on this. There's a lot of energy committed behind this desire. And someone comes up to us and says, oh, by the way, do you know the phone number for, don't even ask, there's no way I could possibly know any phone numbers right now. I'm busy focusing on this thing. You see, it's tied up our energy. It's all committed in this direction, and we can't even do something simple like that. Then suppose the phone call comes and says, actually, guess what? I don't know why you thought she got the promotion. You got the promotion. And then someone says, oh, do you know I know all phone numbers. I will give you any phone number you want. I will also multiply numbers for you if you like. I will divide them also. You can do anything now because the mind is free from that desire. So the problem is that happens all the time. Whether we are consciously thinking of something or not, when we desire something and we haven't gotten it yet, we are committing some of our energy, and then that energy is not available. It's sort of like putting a lot of cash in all FDs. You lock up all your cash in fixed deposits with 0% interest. What kind of offer is that? It's even worse. You have no cash and you have nothing to show for it. And so this energy is all committed, and then someone says, hey, can you lend me $5 for an ice cream? Sorry, I don't have anything on me. You've got all kinds of energy, but it is committed. This is true for all of us. Okay? And so the challenge is that we normally have these karmas, we talk of them in terms of seeds. Okay, a seed of karma. These seeds of karma, these trapped, committed energies, are filling our spine. This is where your karma is. Suppose someone asks you, where is your karma? You go, I don't know, Dambaram? And no, the karma is in the spine, okay? Your karma is in your spine. And the challenge is, see, there is a phone number. Yeah. So the karma is in the spine, the astral spine, not the physical spine, and the spine of the astral body, but we'll leave that aside for now. And so when the energy tries to rise up your spine, it is blocked by all these seeds of karma. It still rises some. So I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, what a disaster. But still, its flow is impeded by this trapped energy. So you can think of it as, for example, as I said, these are seeds of karma. Think of taking a drinking straw, a plastic drinking straw. We're not supposed to use plastic drinking straws anymore, but this is just in the mind only. And so you fill the drinking straw with, you put a little paper at the bottom, and then you fill it with seeds of rice, arasi. Okay? And then you put that straw in the milk, and then you try to get some milk up that straw. Kashtam. Why? Because the milk, it will just be absorbed by all the rice. Barely it will come up to the straw. You may pass out before you get any milk at all. Because the rice is blocking this flow of milk energy up the straw spine. Now, of course, this analogy is not perfect because really the seeds are not rice. I don't want you going home saying, oh, the spine, it's all arsi. No, it's not. It's that you can think of it this way. Imagine a river that's frozen. You'll really have to imagine it right now because nothing in this room could be frozen at this point. Everything is melting. I'm certainly melting. But think of this river. A frozen river, big chunks of ice in the river, and then the water that is not frozen would just barely be able to trickle through these great big blocks of ice because so much of the water is stuck. And so that's really what it is in our spine, that this energy, as I said, through desires, are committed. Remember, desire is of two forms. Either I want or I don't want. Remember, you may say, well, no, I don't have many desires. Someone may say, not you, not make it personal. But I don't have many things I want, but I do have worries. But a worry is a desire that not happen. You see, so it's just the same. It's committed. I'm so worried about this exam result and so on, I can barely do anything else. So once it's out of your hands, then meditate, energize, do something to just lighten up the energy. So this is the state of every person. And as we start to grow spiritually, we free ourselves of some of these seeds of karma. And every time you meditate, you get rid of some of these seeds of karma. How does a seed of karma normally get released from your spine? It works its way up the spine. The seeds are not stored uniformly in the spine like the drinking straw. They're actually stored in the chakras, if you're familiar with those. But the seed normally works its way up into the brain, and then once it reaches the brain, it manifests the particular outer circumstances. So you have the seed, you have the karma to win some big contract in your business or to do very well professionally. That seed finally gets loose, it comes up into the brain, and that attracts to you that circumstance, that opportunity, that reward, you could say, or that positive thing. Hopefully it's positive. If it means you have to work 24 hours a day for the next 2 months, maybe not so positive. But anyway. So this is how that seed finally leaves your spine, and now, there's a little room for more energy to flow. The wonderful thing about meditation, and Kriya Yoga in particular, is that it allows you to release these seeds, to burn up these seeds without having them manifest into outer activity, outer circumstances. What Kriya Yoga and meditation do is they bring the seed up to the brain, but then, as Yoganandaji said, in the fires of concentration, you burn that seed. So if you have jira seeds, and you roast them, on a flame, and then instead of eating them, which is a nice thing to do, or put them in something, you put them in the ground and say, okay, now I have all kinds of burnt jira plants growing up from that. Is that what will happen? No, because you've killed the seed. You've extinguished its energy. So burnt seeds cannot germinate. And so that's what you do internally when you meditate, and particularly when you practice Kriya Yoga, is you take these seeds of karma and you release them inside without having to live through the outer consequences of that. Now don't worry, the more free of karma you get, the better off you are. Some people have asked me, okay, I don't mind burning the seeds of bad karma, but I don't want to burn any good karma seeds. So how can you tell which seed you're getting up there? Because it doesn't work that way. The more your spine is free, the more successful you will be, even outwardly. But more importantly, the more joyful you will feel inside. Again, I hope you had some experience of that before, because that's what we're shooting for. That's what you will get to feel all the time. So I'd like to close now with a technique. I'm not able to teach you the Kriya Yoga technique just in one evening like this. To learn Kriya Yoga, it takes a certain amount of preparation. In fact, this is what our classes at the Nanda Chennai Center are for those of you who are interested in learning Kriya Yoga. They help you to prepare yourself to receive the technique. But you also learn other techniques along the way, some of which we've done this evening, but there are others as well. And they are very effective. Remember, as long as you're meditating with any technique, even your own technique that you're trying to figure out, some karma is being released. The thing is, as you develop a taste for it, then you want more and more and more. And so that's really why techniques are so helpful to us. So the last thing I'd like to explain, and then we'll meditate together, you need to know this for the technique, is that I told you these seeds of karma are stored in the astral spine. The astral spine is different from the physical spine. is overlaps, but the physical spine we can think of as going from the tailbone to the skull. It's sort of, through the neck. It kind of fits into the skull right there, and that's the physical spine. Remember, of course, it's shaped like an S, literally. That's why you do want to sit straight with a curve in your back. That's your spine straight. Sitting like this may be literally straight, but it hurts your spine because it's not shaped like that. So you're actually bending your spine when it's straight. You want this curve in the lower back. So the astral spine we're going to think of as a straight tube, but in addition to going in the same path as the physical spine, it also goes through the head. It goes from this point, which is the medulla oblongata, to the this point here, the Agya chakra, the spiritual eye, the prefrontal lobes of the brain. So this astral spine is passing through the brain also. Just to give you that image, it's sort of shaped like this. If this is the tailbone, it goes up to the medulla, the back of the head, and then goes through the brain. Okay, and then back down again. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll explain what I mean by back down again. So let's have one more meditation, and I'll teach you a technique called watching the breath in the spine. And there is a technique which Yoganandaji called baby Kriya. So baby Kriya. I'm sorry to say this isn't that technique, but it's close to that technique. So it's maybe baby Kriya. And so it's very helpful. In fact, Swami Kriyananda said, as long as you don't know Kriya Yoga, you can also practice this technique. So let's sit up straight. Again, with our backs away from the back of the chair. And let's inhale with a double breath and tense the body. And then throw the breath out, relax. Twice more. Okay. And just to help calm ourselves and center ourselves, let's do the following pranayama exercise. We'll inhale through the nose, hold the breath, and then exhale again through the nose. And let's do it to a certain number of counts. Like we'll inhale for 6, hold for 6, and then exhale for 6. So let's inhale slowly. Hold the breath. Exhale slowly. Inhale slowly. Hold. Exhale slowly. One more time. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Okay. So, to tune into our spine, we want to become aware of our spine's position in our body. So first, sitting up straight, again with your shoulders rolled back and relaxed, just rock back and forth, left and right, meaning leaning to your left shoulder, then your right shoulder. Just slightly feel your spine resisting that movement. Feel there's a strong something inside of you that resists this movement. And then try to come into center, just fully centered in your spine. Your spine is your center. And now, to tune into the astral spine, let's place our left hand at the tailbone. Lean forward so you can press your left hand into the tailbone, and take your right hand and place it at the medulla, the little indentation in the back of your head, just at the top of the neck. Visualize a hollow tube connecting these 2 points. Now keep your right hand in place and move your left hand to the spiritual eye, and feel the hollow tube, or visualize this hollow tube, like a drinking straw in fact, passing through your brain, connecting these 2 points. Okay, you can put your hands down now. This hollow tube, the astral spine, we're going to try to tune into now as we meditate. So let's begin with first taking a deep breath in through the nose and out through the nose. Now when you do this the next time, I'd like you to, as you inhale, visualize energy rising up your spine from the tailbone to the medulla, bending at the medulla and going through the brain. And then as you exhale, see that same energy descending from the medulla through the brain, from the spiritual eye through the brain to the medulla and back down again. So let's inhale, visualize the energy coming up the spine to the brain, and then exhale slowly, visualize that energy descending down to the tailbone from the brain. One more time, inhale, see or feel even that energy rising through the center of the body, bending, going to the brain. Exhale, see that energy slowly descending back the way it came. Let's also now practice this technique, except we're not going to control the breath. Just as before, when we were watching the breath without controlling it, we'll do that again now. Except, when the breath comes in, let us visualize or feel energy rising up the spine. It is rising up the spine. And then as the body chooses to exhale, see the energy descending down the spine. So body breathes in, energy rises up the spine. Body breathes out, energy descends down the spine. But again, don't control the breath the way we just were doing. Just let the breath control itself. But we observe and then match our visualization or our feeling of this energy in the spine to the breath. One other part of this technique that we need to do is to keep the eyes looking slightly upward. Remember, don't get a headache, no tension or pain, just slightly upward. So when the breath comes in on its own, visualize or feel the energy rising up your spine, bending at the back of the head, going through the brain. And when you exhale, feel the energy descending. Keep the eyes looking slightly upward. And we'll practice this technique, which is called watching the breath in the spine, for just a few minutes together. So let's meditate now. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I'd just like to close by sharing one story of Yoganandaji. This is from The New Path by Swami Kriyananda. And if you've read Autobiography of a Yogi, you might very much enjoy this book, which was Swamiji sharing his experience of living with Yoganandaji. Swamiji writes, Yogananda often said that Kriya Yoga strengthens one in whatever path, whether that of devotion, discrimination, or service. Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Judaic, or Muslim, one is inclined by temperament or upbringing to follow. So again, it strengthens you in your own path. Once there came to Master's Ranchi school, he had a school in Ranchi, a visitor who for 20 years had been practicing Bhakti Yoga, the path of single-minded devotion. Though deeply devoted, he had never yet experienced the Lord's blissful response. Kriya Yoga would help you, the Master earnestly suggested to him, but the man didn't want to be disloyal to his own path. Kriya Yoga won't conflict with your present practices, Master insisted. It will only deepen them for you. Still, the man hesitated. Let me explain, Master finally said to him. You are like a man who for 20 years has been trying to get out of a room through the walls, the floor, the ceiling. Kriya Yoga will simply show you where the door is. There is no conflict in that kind of aid with your own devotional path. To pass through the doorway, you must also do so with devotion. The man relented at last and accepted initiation. Hardly a week later, he received his first deep experience of God. And Master said, I wasn't sent by the great masters of India to dogmatize you with a new theology. I want to help you toward the attainment of actual experience of Him through your daily practice of Kriya Yoga. The time for knowing God has come. Thank you all.